Good afternoon, and welcome to our final session on Chat About Chaplaincy. Today, we will be discussing degree programs for chaplaincy. And so we have our Dean, Dr. Peter Gattke, with us, who will be talking about the curriculum, helping us to understand how Memphis Theological Seminary's curriculum in our Master of Divinity, as well as our Master of Arts in Christian Ministry, with chaplain emphasis and chaplain certificate, how those degree programs can help prepare students for the role of chaplaincy in the various institutions and organizations that we discussed earlier this week. Monday, we talked about chaplaincy in hospitalization. Tuesday, we talked about it with the prison system. And Wednesday, we talked about the military. And then last night, campus. So Dr. Gattke, would you introduce yourself to us this afternoon, please?
Sure, I'm Dr. Pete Gattke. I'm the Vice President of Academic Affairs and Dean, and also Professor of Christian Ethics here at Memphis Theological Seminary. So welcome to this program. I'm glad to be here with Dr. Levant.
Thank you so much. And so what I'm going to do is bring up the program guide that we do have available on our website and that we're happy to send to anyone. But in this program guide, we're going to review the curriculum that each of the degree programs includes, the Master of Divinity program overview. And as it says here, the Master of Divinity is a professional degree that prepares you to be a transformational leader in ministry. Theological instruction combined with hands-on ministry experience in immersive courses and practicums offers the knowledge and skills necessary for creative pastoral ministry through the integration of scholarship, piety, and justice. And Dr. Gattke, this week, when we were speaking with particularly the chaplains in healthcare as well as in the military, they established that the Master of Divinity degree is a required degree for to do chaplaincy work in either of those arenas. And then also even in the prison ministry, as well as in the campus ministries, it is preferred. So some of the responsibilities that we reviewed and they discussed with us is that they're responsible for leading worship, they're responsible for pastoral care, they also have leadership responsibilities. And so can you just, and needless to say, the pastoral care, can you speak to how this curriculum, our Master of Divinity program is an 84-hour curriculum program, and can you speak to how these particular courses could help equip an individual to be prepared to serve in those responsibilities and fulfill those duties?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So the Master of Divinity degree, as you indicated, Dr. Levant, is kind of the gold standard for preparation for ministerial leadership, typically within a congregation or in a chaplaincy setting. Usually in a chaplaincy setting, the MDiv is required because often a place like a hospital or the military is going to require that somebody be ordained in order to practice as a chaplain. And a number of Christian denominations and just churches generally typically require the Master of Divinity degree for ordination, though that's not the case in all Christian denominations. But it is, again, kind of the standard route towards ordination for ministry within a church. So the degree program at Memphis Theological Seminary has several parts that help build toward the kind of theological and practical preparation for ministry that a person will need. So our core courses are, I'd say they're kind of standard core courses. We're making sure that people are biblically and theologically grounded within the Christian tradition. So standard courses in Hebrew scriptures, Old Testament, New Testament, getting a basic understanding of church history and Christian theology in our Christian Heritage and Christian Heritage 2 courses, introduction to Christian ethics, which will be very helpful for anybody in a chaplaincy setting, especially in a hospital where life and death decisions are often being made. Context and models for mission and evangelism is a course that really helps people to do kind of the interpretation of the context in which they are serving in ministry. So a person that does ministry has to be able to interpret the Bible, certainly, and interpret Christian theology, but also has to be able to get a sense of how what their context for ministry is, how it's operating, power dynamics, personality dynamics, geography, institutional requirements, those sorts of things. And how do you read those? Really, that evangelism or mission and evangelism course will help to do that. Then we have the kind of standard practice of ministry courses: theology and practice of worship, theology and practice of preaching, theology and practice of pastoral leadership, theology and practice of pastoral care. Those are all making sure that students have the basic knowledge and skills in order to carry out the responsibilities of somebody who is in pastoral ministry. And certainly those would be key for the practice of chaplaincy. Of course, ministry is not just about knowing and doing, it's also about our being disciples of Jesus Christ. And so all along the way, we have formation courses that are about helping students deepen their own spiritual practices, their own spiritual life. So Formation 1 and Formation 2 are very important for that. And then in the MDiv, there's the Master of Divinity Integrative Seminar. I also point out that especially important for for chaplaincy is the clinical practicum course that's required of all MDiv students. In the clinical practicum, students are placed in a context of ministry. People who are interested in hospital chaplaincy would be placed in a hospital. If you're interested in prison ministry, you'd work to try to perhaps get you placed in relationship to somebody who is already a chaplain in a prison setting. It'd be tough to get you into the military setting. But those other sort of total institutions would be a good place to start to pick up the pastoral care skills and practice with those pastoral care skills that a person will need. So that's our core. That's the foundational courses for the Master of Divinity degree. And then we have a number of electives in areas that we require electives. Again, additional biblical studies, church history, theology, the kind of the practical ministry area of preaching, worship, pastoral care. Students who are doing the certificate in chaplaincy will want to be working with an advisor who would help them select those electives in a way that will help them prepare for the work of chaplaincy. We also have something that we call the Interfaith and Intercultural electives. There are two of those. There's where we are encouraging students to broaden their horizons in terms of things like race, class, gender. And so those are courses like this coming January term. There's a theology and disability course. That's an IFC course. So we'll be looking into the realities of disability within the United States, particularly, but also to gain a theological and ministerial understanding of ministry with and to people who could have some type of disability. And then there are 3 courses that are free electives. And again, those would be used within the chaplaincy certificate to select courses that would help a student prepare for the practice of ministry. that's kind of the overall, looking at the degree. It may seem like a lot of credit hours, but getting ready to do the practice of ministry requires significant theological training, ability to think theologically, to approach people and issues from a faith perspective. It's difficult to do that without being steeped in the Bible and the tradition of Christian theology and the variety of voices that are in the Bible and Christian theology. And then there's all the practical things like, how do I learn how to be an effective preacher? How do I learn to be an effective listener, a person who responds effectively to people who are in, say, a healthcare crisis, the healthcare setting, or people who are imprisoned, or people who are serving in the military and are facing a whole variety of ethical issues, but also trying to figure out their own sort of path in life, perhaps within that institution. So it's a kind of a generalist degree in some respects, but what the certificate in chaplaincy studies allows is for a specialization to be created within the required electives and the free electives. So I think it's both foundation and then further development of that foundation, and within that further development, the attention to courses that would really be helpful for somebody who's going into chaplaincy.
That is awesome, Dr. Gecki. And a couple of points that you mentioned, you talked about the clinical practicum opportunity. One of the things that Dr. Ramsey shared the other day, a question that came up during one of our conversations, was whether or not a student has to wait until the end of their program to complete the clinical practicum. I know when I was here, that was the way that it was working. And Dr. Ramsey explained that it was because we had kind of a bottleneck and had such a large number of students that had to complete that practicum that it was deferred till the end of the program. But now Dr. Ramsey said it's possible for a person. The only requirement is that they have completed the intro to pastoral care, and that they can go ahead and have that experience early on in their degree experience and degree program. And of course, one of the benefits of that is a person gets to find out if, particularly like you said, a person might be interested in hospital chaplaincy or prison, but they get to go in and have that practical experience and find out if that's where they want to be. And then there's still time for them to reevaluate and consider other options later. And then the other thing that you just talked about, in addition to the clinical practicum, the fact that all of our students get the interfaith option and opportunity. And another thing that came up in our conversations is the fact that many individuals that you would be ministering to, because we did make clear early on in our conversations that chaplaincy in and of itself is a calling. It's a call to ministry. And we made clear that the individuals that we are called to serve and minister to are not necessarily of the same faith tradition that we are. And so one of the blessings and the exciting thing about the opportunity to prepare at Memphis Theological Seminary is because we do have such a diverse, we have such diverse courses, we have such diverse denominational, by us being ecumenical. We have over 20 denominations represented. We have the opportunity to engage with people from other faith traditions and learn other perspectives, which then in turn helps the students to be better prepared when they get out there in the real world. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's even before somebody who goes into the clinical practicum, the second formation class is called Formation in Contextual Ministry. And in that setting, there is a part of the requirement of that course is to serve in an internship in the ministry setting in which you are called to or that you want to explore. So even before somebody got into the clinical practicum, they could do that kind of exploration within that formation class. And that class comes after, I think it's about after 30 credit hours is when that second formation class opens up. And then I would say it'd be wise to wait to do the clinical practicum until after that formation formation and contextual ministry course. Maybe it'll build upon your hospital experience, or if you did a hospital experience, you didn't really like it, you may be able to have some time for reflection about why you didn't, or what were some of the challenges, and you might be able to meet those and rise to the occasion in your clinical practicum, or you may end up doing, if you wanted to, your internship in a different ministry setting for the clinical practicum. And yes, and for the diversity piece, the thing about chaplaincy in most settings is that you're going to be working with people of a variety of faiths and perhaps even no faith. And it's the responsibility of the chaplain to minister to each one of those persons and family members and friends within that context. So, I mean, if you're working, say, at a large public hospital as a chaplain, you're going to run into people from all walks of life. And it's going to be very important to be able to practice those kind of ministerial skills of listening and empathy and just, I'd say, care, no matter what the person's faith background is. Because it's certainly not the role of the chaplain to be proselytizing or, to be witnessing to a particular faith. It's the role of the chaplain to listen to the spiritual needs of the person that they are ministering to, and to be able to respond to those spiritual needs in a way that's sensitive and compassionate. So yes, certainly there's plenty of diversity within Christianity itself, and we certainly get to experience that right here within the walls of Memphis Theological Seminary. But outside the walls, in these practicums, this contextual ministry is where we would be encountering people of other faiths, but also within the walls, going back inside the seminary, we offer courses regularly in other religious traditions, such as Judaism and Islam, Buddhism, so that students have a way of understanding where people might be coming from within those traditions. Of course, those are, somewhat at the introductory level. All of the world religions have, just about as much variety within them as Christianity has, but they do give a kind of overview and an understanding of those faith traditions as well.
Yes, and as a matter of fact, we're excited because Rabbi Aby was with us on Monday night, and he's going to be teaching Judaism in the spring. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes.
Yeah, so we're excited about that experience. And then one of the other things that we've learned in these conversations, because I had shared on Monday that I was talking to Curtis Mormon, who is a chaplain, one of our alumni chaplain in Jackson, and I was asking him, I said, well, Curtis, why do you need an MDiv if your primary role in chaplaincy in the hospital is pastoral care? And so he went on to explain about how they do. They've baptized, they've administered the sacraments, and so they do have those theology and do liturgies. Last night on the campus, in the campus conversation, one was sharing about how they do the homilies at their school, and so there are opportunities to basically, many times they, as chaplains, they serve in kind of a pastoral role sometimes for those individuals, offering pastoral care during the time that they are in their various institutions and arenas. So
yeah, I'm thinking also that people are bringing to a chaplain their questions about their belief in God, about where is God in, I've just been diagnosed with lung cancer. Where is God in the midst of this? Or my child just died in the emergency room at Le Bonheur. Where's God? And those are questions that require both pastoral sensitivity to answer them or to respond to the question, but they also require some theological depth. and personal depth, spiritual depth. And it requires study and lots of prayer and attention to the well-being of others. I just mentioned really scholarship, piety, and justice, in order to respond in a way that's not going to harm a person, and hopefully in a way that's going to help a person. We're in chaplaincy and ministry more generally, we're responding to the deepest spiritual needs of people. And we need to be professional in the best sense of that word, which is well-trained, well-prepared. This isn't just something where you do things, sort of impromptu, just off the cuff. That's a way in which people in ministry end up hurting other human beings in deep ways, and spiritually, psychologically, emotionally. And it might be the person's hurt so deeply they said, to hell with religion.
That's true.
If that's, if this is what faith is, I want nothing to do with it. And so it requires an ability to listen, to be empathetic, to practice what we often talk about as a ministry of presence. And that requires, sometimes keeping your mouth shut and your ears open. Chaplaincy is not about necessarily, telling people what to do or how to feel. In fact, I'd say that's exactly what chaplaincy isn't.
Yes, I agree wholeheartedly. And so, Dr. Gecki, we talked about the Master of Divinity, but we also offer the Master of Arts in Christian Ministry. Mm-hmm. And let me make sure I'm sharing my screen. Yes, I am sharing. It says I am.
Mm-hmm. You are.
Can you see it? Okay, great.
Yeah, so, I don't see the whole program overview, but you'll have to probably scroll to make that happen.
Mm-hmm. And so the Master of Arts in Christian Ministry, we talked about, again, we spoke with chaplains who serve in the campus ministry settings, as well as some of the correctional facilities or the prison ministries don't necessarily require the MDiv. Again, it is preferred, but for certain levels of chaplaincy, they do not require the Master of Divinity. And then, of course, there are a lot of nonprofit agencies that we have, our alum have started, where the pastoral care and chaplaincy courses curriculum has been beneficial, but they don't necessarily need the full gamut of the theology and worship and the preaching, but they still need the care. So the Master of Arts in Christian Ministries has been developed towards that end. Can you share with us about how the curriculum of this program can help others serve who don't necessarily want to serve in those areas where they need the Master of Divinity or the CPEs and the board certification?
Yeah, so chaplaincy it's a broad term, and so the typically in a hospital, military setting, even in prison setting, they often are going to want somebody who is board certified, and that's different from the certificate in chaplaincy that a person could earn at Memphis Theological Seminary, either within the MDiv or the Master of Arts in Christian Ministry. So what our certificate in chaplaincy in chaplaincy studies is doing is giving a kind of an overview of chaplaincy, a way to think about what are the basic responsibilities of somebody who's engaged in chaplaincy, and kind of the theological and historical foundations for the practice of chaplaincy. But it's also giving people that again, the theological, the biblical, and the practical foundations that are crucial for entering into the work of chaplaincy. And again, this is Master of Arts in Christian Ministry would be for people typically who are not seeking ordination, though there are some denominations that would ordain people with a Master of Arts in Christian Ministry. You'd have to check into your own denomination's ordination requirements for that kind of information. But within the Master of Arts in Christian Ministry, we have a specialization or concentration in chaplaincy studies, chaplain studies. And so there are a couple of things that say about that specialization is a person would be taking theology and practice of chaplaincy, be taking the pastoral care course, and a clinical pastoral education course, CPE. That formation for ministry 2 is actually the specialized ministry practicum. So that sort of gets combined in that formation 2. I would say what the Master of Arts in Christian Ministry is doing is giving a person enough foundation to be able to do chaplaincy. Though, again, the gold standard would be the Master of Divinity degree.
Awesome, wonderful. And then I put it up a little too soon, but we also offer the Doctor of Ministry in Faith and Health Pastoral Therapy. And for those who want to go beyond the Master of Divinity and want to take it to another level, and particularly one of the things, the distinctions that Dr. Ramsey was explaining the other day, that for those individuals who maybe want to practice more on the counseling or the mental health side versus just the pastoral care aspect, that the Doctor of Ministry in Faith and Health Pastoral Therapy is a good opportunity to enhance their pastoral care. Because one of the things that we were speaking with Chaplain Benita Livingston the other day, who serves at the VA, and she was talking about how a lot of the soldiers and those that they minister to are coming with a lot of issues that are dealing with mental health related. And we've talked to all of the various chaplains have talking about suicidal tendencies and substance abuse. And so can you speak a little bit about the Faith and Health Pastoral Therapy curriculum offering and how that might be something that someone might be interested in going beyond the Master of Divinity?
Yeah, this would be a degree that for somebody who's already been in the practice of ministry for a number of years, any 3+ years, sometimes it's 10, 15, 20 years, really depends on the person. We have people that run the gamut from, relatively new within ministry to those who have years and years and years of experience. And this is the Doctor of Ministry does presume that somebody has the MDiv and has been in the practice of ministry for a while. And if you look at that lineup of courses, you'll see that it's very much geared towards pastoral therapy and deepening one's knowledge and skills within certain areas in which pastoral therapy is practiced. So certainly the first of those courses is really examining the interconnections between theology and the general practice of psychotherapy and kind of the human condition. The advanced studies in human development is trying to get a better understanding of the human person and psychological dynamics, and then going into sort of the areas of practice for the next 3 courses. And of course, all of that is leading towards the Doctor of Ministry project, in which a student defines a particular problem or issue within this case, in the area of pastoral therapy, identifies a challenge, a problem, and then develops a ministerial approach to that issue or problem, and then shares the results of how that approach worked or didn't work in the actual addressing of the issue or problem.
Awesome. And so one of the things, as you've just spoken to, Dr. Gecky, is the Doctor of Ministry in Faith and Health Pastoral Therapy does have a significantly higher clinical component to it than perhaps the pastoral care. And so for those individuals who are looking maybe more towards the clinical and becoming licensed therapists, mm-hmm. that may not necessarily want to serve in chaplaincy, we have now been sensitive to the fact that there are those who may not want to go the full MDiv route. And so now we provide the opportunity for one to complete the Master of Arts in Christian Ministry and then go into the Doctor of Ministry in Faith and Health Pastoral Therapy without necessarily completing the MDiv. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, this is really a relatively recent development in theological education, but the recognition that really there is no like one size fits all degree or degree program. So people are coming to their studies from a variety of backgrounds and interests and experiences. And so what we like to do is sit down with a prospective student and say, what has been your experience? What are the things that you are really interested in learning about so that you can, for the DMin, to improve your practice of ministry? It doesn't necessarily, you may be in a practice of ministry where you've had a Master of Arts in Christian Ministry. I mean, we've been offering this degree for a while, for 4 or 5 years, but now you want to come back to school and really deepen your studies. You can do that. I mean, so the MDiv requirement's not there in part because we recognize now that there are plenty of people who are engaged with ministry who never got the MDiv degree and yet have been doing significant ministry and want to come back and deepen their theological understanding and their practice of that ministry.
Wonderful. We are just so excited about that because we have had a great interest, and we do have those individuals who want to serve more in the counseling capacity, and again, the more clinical, particularly with the church universal today beginning to embrace and recognize the fact that sometimes our parishioners and just people in the world in general need more help than we can offer in those counseling capacities in the churches. And so they need the more clinical. We are beginning to acknowledge that mental health is a real issue today. And so one of our commitments here at Memphis Theological Seminary, as you just said, is to help individuals to be able to serve, to be equipped to serve in a variety of roles, to do that work of ministry in our commitment to scholarship, piety, and justice. So we don't have any questions, Dr. Gecki. Is there anything that you would like to add before we wrap up today?
Well, I'd add about in terms of the pastoral therapy component is that yes, human beings, we're complicated creatures, and in order to do ministry in relationship to us as complicated creatures requires some significant study, and it's kind of hubris or pride to think that I don't need to study and I can minister to people. It doesn't work that way. You're probably not going to do very well. You may end up hurting people you didn't even realize you were hurting them, and you may end up hurting yourself too. So, I mean, one of the things that we learn in pastoral therapy, and also would certainly learn within just the basic kind of chaplaincy courses, is the importance of something that often is called boundaries, recognizing basic things like in ministry, I am not the one who is saving people, and certainly not in pastoral care or therapy either. Salvation comes from God, not from me as a limited human being. But I can help point people in certain directions. I can certainly be a resource person for people, and I can be a sounding board for people. And in that listening, I can ask questions that might help a person go deeper with what they're feeling or thinking about. But that asking of questions in a way that helps a person go deeper into themselves, that's not just something you sort of, pick up while you're driving your car around town. That's something that you learn to be able to do well by understanding more about how we work as human beings. And of course, there are different approaches to that. And so you need to sometimes mix and match out of those different approaches as well. So it's important to do the studies, it's kind of at the master's level. The introduction to pastoral care is crucial. And then at the doctoral level, this even a deeper dive into those kinds of issues.
Awesome. And then the other thing, not to put you on the spot per se, but I do know that you have served on the various committees not the various committees, but when it comes to the examination of the DMin students for their projects, you have had the privilege of serving in the capacity of that examination. And so can you give us a couple of projects that people have done, that DMin students have done? Because this is to be perfectly honest, I've been serving in this role as recruiter with the DMin program since 2017. So this is our 17, 19, 20, about our fourth class. It's actually our most popular Doctor of Ministry track. And and we've had chaplains participate in that. And we've had students who have graduated from MTS that have gone on, but can do a couple of projects come to mind of what things people have done through that concentration to be helpful and beneficial that they can carry back into their context?
Yeah, one that comes to mind is, because I helped direct the project, was a person who himself had been incarcerated and saw just how prison ministry is so inadequate. So much prison ministry is so inadequate to really help people prepare for the moment that they're looking forward to, which is getting out of prison. So what he saw was that failure to really prepare people for exiting prison had a lot to do with a very simplistic approach of, well, if you just accept Jesus as your personal savior, everything's going to be fine. It's not quite that simple. And so he developed a response that's grounded in something called systems therapy, and developed a program for people for re-entry into the broader society. And it's really a very good project. In fact, it was so good that it ended up being published as a book.
Wow.
So that was a really outstanding student. Also, kind of general areas people have worked with, domestic violence and pastoral responses to the victims of domestic violence, but also how to prepare churches to be places where people feel comfortable enough within that church to even say, look, I'm being abused and I need help. And so that was a good project that looked into how can the church address that kind of issue, bring it to the forefront, and also work with agencies that address domestic violence, including the police, in ways that are helpful for people. So it really, runs the gamut. People have done healthcare things. How do I deal with end of life questions? Men, projects. So those are a few examples.
Thank you. I mean, those are really great issues to wrestle with, and these are the types of questions that the individuals that we engage with and care for, they have. And so I think that's really wonderful. The one question that we have received, someone asked, when should applications for the DMin track be submitted? And so the application deadline for our Doctor of Ministry program is April 30. We encourage you to go ahead if you're interested in that and get your application in, because we are accepting and reviewing those applications for admission on a rolling basis. So you don't have to wait until April 30. I can say that for the Faith and Health Pastoral Therapy, because as I mentioned, it has been so popular that traditionally for our Doctor of Ministry program, we usually offer a cohort once every 2 years, but because that one had been so popular, we had been offering a cohort annually for the past four or 5 years. And so we will not have a Faith and Health Pastoral Therapy cohort in 2022. Our next Faith and Health Pastoral Therapy cohort will be in 2023. But particularly for individuals who do not have a Master of Divinity or do not have the Master of Arts in Christian Ministry, because our requirement now for the Doctor of Ministry is a master's degree. It can be in another area of concentration. However, if it is not in the Master of Arts in Christian Ministry or the Master of Divinity, then there would be some master leveling courses required, so that because the projects that Dr. Gecki have spoken to, they do have to all be theologically grounded and have a strong theological foundation. And so for individuals who have masters in other areas of concentration, perhaps social work, perhaps counseling, or some other area, this would be the perfect time for you to go ahead and submit your Doctor of Ministry application so it can be determined what master level theological courses you would need to take. And you can go on and be working on those over the next year so that by the time admission for the Doctor of Ministry in Faith and Health Pastoral Therapy comes, you will be ready, because all of our Doctor of Ministry, all of our programs, period, are grounded in a strong theological and biblical foundation and tradition. And we want you to be prepared from that perspective. But April 30 is the deadline for our Doctor of Ministry applications. And currently we are waiving the $65 application fee. As a matter of fact, for the master's degree programs, we are waiving the $45 application fee currently. The application deadline is January 10, I believe, for the spring semester. But if a person is interested in pursuing or applying for any of our scholarship opportunities, we do have several scholarship opportunities, but the application deadline for that is November. So you want to go ahead and get your applications in for any of our degree programs. And again, we are so excited to have shared with you all this week. We've learned so much. We've gleaned a lot. We here in admissions, I am, as Dr. Gecki said, I always forget to introduce myself, because I'm always so excited about the panel. But I am Felicia Levant, and my colleague Luke Waters and I would be so grateful for the opportunity to help you navigate the application process for our degree program. So give us a call in the comments. You will find our email address, admissions@memphisseminary.edu, as well as our phone number. So please reach out to us. We again at Memphis Theological Seminary are so excited for this opportunity to share with you. Not only do we have the classes, not only do we share with these kinds of conversations, but we encourage you to go to our website where we have many other opportunities for learning, some at no cost. For instance, currently we're doing Pulpit and Pew. So check out our website. Check out our Facebook page. We have Chapel on here every Wednesday at 11 o'clock. So again, thank you for spending this time with us here at Memphis Theological Seminary. And you all have a great weekend. Thanks, Dr. Gecki, for joining us.
Thank you, Dr. Levant, and thanks for everybody who's joined in today.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.